Indentured servitude, a source of labor in the colonies before the rise of slavery. So I'm going to be using outline form throughout this. So please pay attention to the outline form and make sure you are indenting when it is appropriate. This is Roman numeral 1, push and pull factors. Uppercase A, push factor, which is anything that pushes somebody out of their home country. Lowercase a, in Europe in the early 1600s, there was a poor economy for years because of war, because the countries were actually at war for many years, and following that, people were left without work, or they were in debt, meaning they owed money. Lowercase b, Europeans in need of work looked to the colonies as a place for opportunities. Other push factors were overpopulation, and so that also would leave people without work and looking for job opportunities elsewhere. And also poor urban conditions, so poverty and sometimes disease that existed in large cities would push people out to want to come to the colonies. Uppercase B, pull factor, anything pulling people to the new country, so something enticing that draws them in. And lowercase a, cash crops, tobacco and rice that were grown along the coastal south created a high demand for labor, and this was particularly in the southern colonies, but it was also in the middle and New England colonies. Lowercase b, this results in jobs being available, especially to work on farms. Okay, Roman numeral 2, indentured servant. And this shows a broker that is introducing an indentured servant to the new master. So uppercase A, an indentured servant would work from 4 to 7 years. Sometimes they'd work even longer. A woman that gave birth, for example, would have the time that she was nursing her child and taking care of the newborn, would have that added on to her servitude or time of servitude. So it was pretty ruthless. And sometimes it could be up to 10 years, and it could be young children as young as 10 years old that were working as indentured servants. Uppercase B, the indentured servant would exchange work for free passage to the colonies, lodging, food, and freedom dues. So they were going over there to work for that 4 to 7 years, and then hopefully afterwards they would get these freedom dues, which we'll talk about in a second. But they had their passage paid for, so for their time of service, and then when they got there, food and lodging was provided. A freedom due. At the end of service, the former servant received land, food and guns, a cow and clothing, items and things that would allow them to start their new life. We'll see how often that actually happened, meaning how many indentured servants ended up receiving freedom dues. Uppercase C, life was very hard and restrictive, but they did have some rights or protections against poor treatment. Enslaved African labor did not have these protections. And uppercase D, indentured servitude was the preferred method for labor from about 1607, the founding of Jamestown, till about 1680. Then the transition to slavery begins. Or it was beginning during this time, but was completed right around the 1680s. The Headright System is Roman numeral 3. This shows an indentured servant working in a tobacco farm. So here's the Headright System. Uppercase A, the Headright System says, for every indentured servant brought over from Europe, the planter requesting help received 50 acres of land. So this was done to encourage the planter to request a servant, because they wanted to get people to the colonies. They wanted to populate the colonies so that they'd start producing things like tobacco, ship that back to the mother country, like England, and keep the economy going, make it worthwhile to have the colony. Colonies were expensive, so they needed people over there as sources of labor, working in the fields, turning raw materials into resources. Lowercase a, problem. You need labor force to work the fields and make the colonies worth the investment. Sorry, there's a typo there. So you need a labor force to make having a colony worth the investment of creating a colony. So the Headright system was something to incentivize requesting service or requesting labor. Solution, Headright system. It encouraged immigration to the British colonies in North America. But it would eventually start gobbling up a lot of land, and a lot of the good land would go to the already rich landowners. And when we think about the freedom dues, right here, the land that they're receiving might be the poor land. This might start to cause a problem. Thank you for listening.